One of the biggest lies society tells us is that aging makes you less independent. That as you grow older, you lose your freedom, your choices, your ability to live life on your terms. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, aging pushes you toward independence, mentally, emotionally, even physically, in ways you never expected. And today, I'm revealing 7 reasons why aging is actually your greatest tool for personal freedom. You know, when you're young, you spend so much time thinking you need people. You need their approval. You need their company. You need their validation. It feels like the world is too big, too uncertain, and somehow you believe that without others, you'd be lost. But then time does its work. The years roll by, and life teaches you something unexpected. Independence isn't something you choose one day. It's something you grow into, something aging hands you like an inheritance. You don't wake up and decide to be independent. You just start noticing that you no longer lean on people the way you once did. And not because you're bitter or because you don't care anymore, but because you finally understood the difference between wanting people in your life and needing them. It's funny, isn't it? When you were younger, you might have been terrified of being alone. The thought of eating dinner by yourself or traveling without company felt like an unbearable silence. But as you get older, that silence starts to feel like a gift. You don't rush to fill it, you embrace it. And in that quiet, you discover something no one ever taught you when you were younger. Freedom. Aging brings independence in ways you never expected. Not just in the big, obvious ways, but in the small, subtle shifts. The moments when you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to others. The moments when you trust your own judgment without seeking permission. It's in the way you stop apologizing for who you are, the way you begin walking through life on your own terms. It starts with realizing that most of what people think about you doesn't matter. When you're younger, you waste so much time worrying about being liked. You second-guess yourself. You hold your tongue when you should speak, and you speak when you should stay quiet, all because you're trying to shape how others see you. But then, one day, you just stop. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown up. You realize that most people are too busy with their own lives to be thinking about you as much as you once feared. And even if they do, what difference does it make? You reach a point where you understand that their approval won't make you any happier, and their criticism won't make you any less of who you are. That's independence, learning to live outside of other people's expectations. And then there's the matter of time. When you're younger, you believe time is endless. You believe you have forever to waste, so you don't think twice about who you spend it on. But as you get older, you start guarding your time like a precious resource because you finally understand it is one. You no longer entertain people who drain you. You no longer sit through conversations that bring nothing but noise. You no longer agree to things just to please someone else. You've learned to say no, and not only that, you've learned to say no without guilt. That's something age gives you, the right to choose yourself. You're not as easily swayed by emotions. You don't let guilt or obligation dictate your choices. You stop trying to save everyone because you've learned that not everyone wants to be saved, and some people would rather pull you down than climb up themselves. You start living for yourself, and that's not selfish. It's survival. And let's talk about material things. When you're young, you want more money, more possessions, more success. But as you get older, that hunger changes. You don't want more, you want enough. Enough peace, enough health, enough laughter. You stop chasing and start appreciating. You realize that independence doesn't come from accumulating. It comes from letting go. The less you need, the freer you are. You don't need people to fill your emptiness anymore because you've filled it yourself. You don't need distractions to escape your thoughts because you've made peace with them. You don't need constant noise because you've learned that silence is not loneliness, it's clarity. Independence through aging isn't about pushing people away. It's about choosing them for the right reasons It's about being with people because you truly enjoy their presence, not because you're afraid of being alone. It's about understanding that love, friendship, and companionship should be additions to your life, not requirements for your happiness. And so, aging isn't a loss, it's a return to yourself, a return to what truly matters, a return to living in a way that feels right for you, without the weight of unnecessary expectations. That is the first gift of aging. Realizing that independence isn't loneliness, it's strength. One of the strangest things about getting older is realizing how much of your life was spent worrying about things that never really mattered. You remember the anxiety you used to feel about what others thought of you, the endless need to fit in, the pressure to impress people who, in the end, probably don't even remember your name. And then something shifts. You wake up one day and realize you no longer care in the same way. It's not that you've become cold or indifferent. It's that you've finally grasped a simple truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the way you choose to live your life. That's a kind of independence no one can hand you. You have to arrive at it yourself. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks up on you. It's in the small moments when you notice that you don't feel the same pressure to justify your choices. Maybe when you were younger, you needed approval to feel confident in your decisions. You needed someone to tell you that you were doing the right thing. But now you trust yourself. You don't ask for permission to live your life. You understand that no matter what you do, someone, somewhere, will always have an opinion about it. If you play it safe, they'll say you lack ambition. If you take risks, they'll call you reckless. If you focus on your own happiness, they'll say you're selfish. But when you're older, you finally ask yourself, so what? You stop living for the approval of people who aren't living your life. There's also another freedom that comes with age, the freedom from unnecessary conflict. When you're younger, you argue more. You fight to prove your point. You want to be understood. You want to be right. But as you grow older, you realize that being right isn't always worth the energy it takes to prove it. You start letting things go, not because you're weak, not because you've given up, but because you've realized that peace is more valuable than being right. You no longer feel the need to correct everyone. You don't jump into every debate. You don't waste time trying to change minds that don't want to be changed. You pick your battles wisely, and more often than not, you choose to simply walk away. There's a certain independence in that too. The independence of knowing that not everything requires your reaction. Not every problem is yours to fix. Not every insult is worth your time. You reach a stage where you don't need to fight every battle because you've won the most important one, the one within yourself. And speaking of peace, let's talk about solitude. When you're younger, you think solitude is something to be avoided. You think being alone is a kind of failure, that it means you aren't loved, that you're missing out. But as you get older, solitude becomes something entirely different. It becomes a luxury. You no longer fill every quiet moment with noise. You don't seek distractions just to avoid being alone with your thoughts. Instead, you embrace those moments. You savor them. You realize that true independence is about being comfortable in your own company. It's about not needing constant validation or entertainment. It's about learning to enjoy the simple things. Your morning coffee, the sound of rain, the pages of a book, the peace of an evening walk. And maybe, most importantly, aging gives you the independence to let go of old burdens. You spend so much of your younger years carrying things that don't belong to you. Other people's expectations, regrets, grudges, past mistakes. But there comes a point when you finally understand. Carrying these things doesn't serve you. You stop seeking closure for everything. You accept that some apologies will never come. Some people will never understand you. Some situations will never be resolved the way you wanted. And that's okay. You no longer need every chapter to have a perfect ending. You learn to close the book and move forward, and in doing so, you become free. Aging is often seen as a loss, but in so many ways, it's actually a return to yourself, a return to what matters, a return to a simpler, more peaceful way of living. You let go of the need to impress, the need to control, the need to hold on to things that no longer serve you. You realize that independence isn't about being alone. It's about being whole. It's about understanding that your worth isn't tied to anyone else. It's about finally living for yourself. There's a strange kind of wisdom that only comes with time. You don't get it from books, you don't get it from advice, and you certainly don't get it from rushing through life looking for answers. It's something that slowly settles in, like a quiet knowing after years of experience. One of the biggest lessons aging teaches you is that you are responsible for your own happiness. When you're younger, you tend to place that responsibility on other people. You expect your relationships, your job, your friends, or even your family to make you happy. You believe that if only you had the right circumstances, the right person, the right opportunity, then finally you'd feel content. But as time goes on, you realize that happiness was never something outside of you. It was never something you had to chase. You start to see that peace isn't found in the perfect situation, the perfect relationship, or the perfect job. It's found in the way you choose to see things. It's found in how you wake up each morning and decide whether to focus on what you have or what you lack. It's found in the small, everyday moments that you used to overlook. The quiet of an early morning, the laughter of a grandchild, the warmth of a well-worn chair. When you stop depending on others to make you happy, something interesting happens. You become independent in a way that no amount of money, success, or possessions can give you. You no longer expect people to fill your emptiness. You no longer demand that they act a certain way to keep you satisfied. You understand that people come and go, circumstances change, and life is unpredictable. But through it all, the one thing that remains constant is you. And if you can be at peace with yourself, if you can find contentment in your own company, then you have something that no one can take away from you. And here's another thing aging teaches you: self-respect becomes non-negotiable. When you're younger, you tolerate things you shouldn't. You let people take advantage of your kindness. You hold on to relationships that drain you. You make excuses for behavior that deep down you know isn't right. But as you get older, you stop doing that, not because you're angry, not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand what you deserve. You no longer waste time trying to convince people of your worth. You no longer beg for attention, affection, or understanding. If someone cannot see your value, you don't try to prove it to them. You simply move on. You learn that true independence means surrounding yourself only with those who respect you, uplift you, and bring you peace. It's not that you stop caring about people. It's that you stop allowing the wrong people to take up space in your life. You become selective with your energy, careful with your time, and intentional with your presence. And in doing so, you create a life that feels lighter, freer, and truer to who you are. Another gift that aging gives you: the ability to live without constant comparison. In your younger years, it's easy to get caught up in the race, comparing careers, houses, relationships, bank accounts. You measure your success against other people's timelines. You wonder if you're doing enough, achieving enough, being enough. But then, one day, you simply stop. You stop competing. You stop measuring. You stop chasing after things that were never meant for you in the first place. You understand that life isn't a race. No one is ahead. No one is behind. Everyone is simply walking their own path, in their own time. You realize that happiness isn't about having what someone else has. It's about appreciating what's already yours. And because of that, you let go of envy. You stop looking at what others are doing and focus on what brings you joy. You make decisions based on what feels right to you, not based on what looks good to others. You stop chasing validation because you finally understand that real success isn't about impressing the world. It's about being at peace with yourself. And maybe the most beautiful shift of all is this: you learn to slow down. In your younger years, everything feels urgent. You rush through meals. You rush through conversations. You rush through experiences, always thinking about what's next. But aging teaches you that there's nothing more valuable than the present moment. So you start to savor things. You take your time with your morning coffee. You sit and listen, really listen, when someone talks. You stop multitasking and start being fully present. You appreciate the way sunlight filters through the trees, the way music sounds different when you actually stop and hear it. You understand that life isn't about how much you do, it's about how deeply you experience it, and in that, you find a kind of independence that is rare and priceless. The independence of knowing that you don't need to rush, you don't need to chase, you don't need to prove, you just need to be. There comes a time in life when you stop feeling the need to explain yourself. Not in an arrogant way, not in a dismissive way, but in a peaceful way. A way that says, I know who I am, and that's enough. That's one of the greatest freedoms aging gives you, the ability to live without feeling like you owe anyone an explanation. When you're younger, you feel the need to justify your choices. You explain why you said no, why you walked away, why you chose this path instead of that one. But as you get older, you realize that the people who truly understand you don't need explanations, and the people who demand them won't accept them anyway. You no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. You don't over-explain your decisions. You don't waste energy trying to prove yourself. You simply live according to what feels right to you, and that is enough. This is true independence, and part of this independence is the ability to let go of the past. When you're young, you carry your past like a heavy suitcase, dragging it with you everywhere you go. Regrets, mistakes, missed opportunities, they sit in the back of your mind, whispering what-ifs and should-haves. But as you age, you realize that the past is just that, the past. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't define you unless you allow it to. So, you begin to let go. You stop replaying old conversations in your head. You stop punishing yourself for things you can't change. You stop wishing you had done things differently, because you finally understand that every mistake, every misstep, every moment of pain brought you to where you are now. And where you are now is exactly where you're meant to be. That's another thing aging teaches you: acceptance. When you're young, you resist so much. You resist change, you resist loss, you resist anything that disrupts the plan you had for your life. But as you get older, you start to embrace it. You learn that change isn't the enemy. It's just part of the journey. You learn that loss isn't something to be feared. It's a reminder to cherish what you have while you have it. And you learn that no matter how much you try to control life, it will unfold the way it's meant to. So, you stop resisting. You stop fighting what is. You stop holding on so tightly to things that are slipping away. You trust that even if things don't go according to your plan, they are still going according to some plan. One that you may not fully understand, but one that is shaping you into exactly who you need to be. And with this trust comes a deeper sense of peace. You no longer panic over things you can't control. You no longer stress over things that don't deserve your energy. You let life be what it is, and in doing so, you become free. This is the independence of aging. The independence of trusting yourself. The independence of choosing peace over chaos. The independence of knowing that you don't need to prove, explain, or justify who you are, and perhaps the most unexpected freedom that aging brings, the freedom to live simply. When you're younger, you think happiness is tied to more success, more achievements, more possessions. But as you get older, you start to realize that happiness is actually found in less stress, less drama, less unnecessary clutter in your home, in your mind, in your heart. You start valuing simplicity. You cherish the quiet moments. You appreciate the beauty in ordinary things: a slow morning, a familiar song, a peaceful evening. You stop chasing what you don't have and start appreciating what you do. And in that simplicity, you find something you never expected: contentment. Not the fleeting kind that comes from accomplishments or recognition, but the deep, lasting kind that comes from knowing that you have enough, that you are enough, and that life, even in its imperfect moments, is still good. This is what aging gives you: not loss, but clarity; not loneliness, but independence; not fear, but wisdom. And if you're lucky, if you're paying attention, you'll see that aging isn't something to resist, it's something to embrace. Because with every passing year, you become more yourself, more at peace, more free. And that, in the end, is the greatest gift of all.